Good evening and welcome back to Irons United. We are live for our first Gift of the Gab podcast I literally have not a single idea. I'm joined by several guests, very familiar faces of the show. Actually, I think everyone's a very familiar face of the show. So we've got Richard. Richard, how you doing, mate? All the way from South Africa, Johannesburg, mate. What's happening?
What's up, mate? I'm all good, thanks. How you doing, Ant?
Yes,
you
good, thank you. Yeah, it's been a while since we've done a podcast, mate. It's a Gift of the Gab podcast. It's not a podcast that goes out on anywhere else, but we call it our podcast for anyone that's listening. But it's been a while since we've done a Gift of the Gab, Rich. Plenty to talk about.
Yeah, it's been a very long time. I've missed these, I must be honest. So it's great to be back involved again, for sure.
Yep. Good man, excellent. Listen, get your comments in as well as we go along. We've got a few topics we'll discuss as we go through the show, and get your comments in, and we'll try and read through some of the comments as we go along. Of course, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Luke, you're also on with us tonight. How you doing, my friend? You well?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, a bit tired here and there after work, but I'm getting there, mate. I'm
excited to get your strong opinion across, mate.
Always,
yeah,
always. You know me.
And current loanee from More Than Just a Podcast, current loanee to Irons United is Nigel Can. Nigel, how are you? We're skint. We are. I am as well.
How you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Have you recovered from your 45th 3-hour podcast that you've done?
Yeah, I did. we did so many hours in August. We actually had to delay the podcast till today because we'd run out of broadcast time available in August.
I was just hoping you were giving me enough time to listen to the last one.
So I think September needs to be calmed down a bit. But I mean, it was 2.5 hours of going through Sean what he ate on holiday. So hence the title was called Crabs.
Listen, we've got. Thanks for joining us. Of course, listen, it's just the Gift of the Gab. Anything really goes, but we've got a few topics to discuss in particular. But I suppose the first one I really want to talk about, without jumping in deep straight away, is just to say it has been 5 years to the day since we've signed this man, Mikel Antonio, for £7 million from Nottingham Forest, 37 goals, 14 assists. Who would have thought on that day that now we would be relying so heavily on this man up top? What's your thoughts on him, Richard?
Oh, he's been absolutely magnificent for us. I remember when we signed him, didn't really have a clue who he was. He'd done well at Forest, and he just came in and he was so raw when he first joined us, and he gave 110%, and he always does that for us. Unfortunately, he has struggled a bit with injury, but he's one of those players you can really rely on, and he gives everything for the club. So, yeah, I think he's been a breath of fresh air for us, and hopefully he can kick on from the form he showed towards the end of last season. Yeah, I love him to bits.
Look, when you thought when we signed him, look, I mean, he has been such a vital part of West Ham in the last 5 years. You know, without Antonio, where would West Ham be? Is that a big, bold statement?
It is, because he's the most strangest signing West Ham probably ever signed, in the fact that he was dirt cheap for what the market is. And when he turned up, I think everyone went, who's this like pissed up looking Sunday League sort of looking championship player that we signed that, you know, is suddenly going to be breaking into the first team with the likes of Payet and Lanzini in it. But he did it. And he epitomises, I think, what West Ham, especially the fans, have sort of always been asking of a player, like 100% commitment, 100%, you know, effort. And he looks at times like he's got absolutely no ability, and then a second later, he's got all the ability. And you know, I think it's been said over and over again by a lot of fans that sometimes he doesn't even know what he's going to do with the ball, and he's unpredictable in a lot of ways, and that also makes him so good against defenders because they're just as bewildered as he is. But I'm probably doing him a bit of a disservice, to be fair, because he's one of our most vital players, and for me personally, he completely changed it. And when you look at it, the only time I've ever really seen Haller look particularly dangerous is when he's played up top with Antonio. So he changed everything, and he scored 10 goals to keep us up, and he's probably been our most vital player. So fair play to him. Cheap signing for what it was, and he's been the bollocks, isn't he? He's been brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Nigel, I mean, we went through a stage though where he was kind of technically mismanaged. He was played in all different positions. I mean, that really wasn't his fault, I suppose, but the versatility of him wasn't really there. But I mean, did you even think remotely we'd be relying so largely on Antonio, considering the amount of money we have spent in the last? The last was like Stills. So yeah, what's your thoughts on Antonio then, Nige?
I mean, to be fair, Luke's just sort of described him how I would have described him.
Oh, sorry, mate.
No, that's all right. It's good to know. We're on the same wavelength. He didn't. It looked like he used to look like. I used to say when in his first season, how did the opposition players would know what he's going to do with the ball, because it don't look like he knows what he's doing with the ball. He had this schoolboy head down, looking at the ball way of running with it. And we were taught as kids you got to look up, but we didn't. We always all looked down when we were kids at the ball to try and control it, and that's how he seemed to run. The first 3 or 4 months he was anonymous, to the point David Gold got fooled into tweeting, "Have you seen this person?" Because someone has said, "Have you seen this person? We can't find him, Dave. Can you retweet it and help us find him?" And David Gold retweeted it without realising it was Antonio who had been signed by Bilic. That season, I think he ended up playing right back as well, and did so well there, to the point that I think Jenkinson may have been fit, and he sort of got kept at right back for a while. And he's a utility player, and no matter where we've put him, we've played him left midfield, right back. We've played him up front. The bloke's never let us down, and he will. For me, he will go down as a legend. Once he's left the club anyway, for the goal of the last game and at the Boleyn. He's one of the 13 or 14 players that played that game, but he scored, the second from last goal there. So, I can only speak highly of the bloke. I won't see I can't think of a bad word to say about him. His attitude off the pitch, he's the only bloke who can crash a car in someone's front drive and even make that look funny. Normally we'd be slating an idiot for doing that. Driving their Maserati, or what's like these footballers flash things, whatever, and he jumps out dressed as a snowman.
Yeah,
I mean, even we can see the funny side of that.
But I mean, he's got quite a lot of accolades, though, considering he is like the West Ham player. Like you said, he's got one of the players who scored the last goal was at Upton Park. He scored the first goal at Tottenham Hotspur's new stadium, of course, that defeated them. He scored the first goal at Olympic Stadium, didn't he? London Stadium against Bournemouth, thanks to a Gokhan Tor cross. But I mean, you just look back at the stats and you think 37 goals, 14 assists, £7 million. But I don't think anyone really would have thought he would have turned out to be as vital to the squad, and still 5 years later as vital to the squad as he's become. So yeah, I mean, fair play to Antonio. I'll hold my hand up. I've went through the ups and downs with Antonio, as we probably all have. Richard, are you going to say something there?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking back to obviously when he crashed his car. I was staying in Balham at the time. I was over from South Africa, and he must have crashed 500 meters down from where I was staying. So as soon as I saw the news article, I went to go visit the crash scene. Obviously, they'd hauled the car away and everything. It was quite funny to be there, and then to go to Palace the next day and everyone's singing, "He parks where he wants, he parks where he wants." It was quality, yeah. So it's just a funny time, but it is crazy how footballers can just crash their cars and act like nothing's happened,
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a huge season really for Antonio. I mean, how do we see him fitting in? Are we thinking he's going to be playing basically the same role as before? Luke?
Yeah, it's almost a bit like, well, he's done so well in the up front role now that he Moyes could be like, well, you need to play there, son, because you just kept this up by playing that role. But it's quite interesting, because most people, when they watch Antonio play, especially when he's shooting, they always think, don't overthink it. You know, just try and take it as quick as you can. You know, because he's more than capable of skying it into Rosehead and out as big as it is out of the London Stadium when he wants to. But towards the end of last season, he started to really look like he was improving his skills. I mean, the way he finished off against Watford when we won 3-1, it seemed really cool finish. I don't know what it is, but Moyes seems to have this weird capability of turning wingers into forwards, and Atovic was never looked at anyone like he was going to be a forward. Suddenly he was our main man up front, and he's done exactly the same to Antonio. And maybe he's got a weird thing where he can turn the striker into a winger. So maybe Haller's going to be the next best winger that we've signed him as a striker, and he's going to be converted. So.
Well, let's bring it on nicely then to Mr. David Moyes. And you know, someone on our chat the other day, you know, said he's an innovative manager. He's brought Antonio and Arnautovic, like you said, look there, to the forefront of attack and made them really vital to the squad. Nigel, do we have a lot to thank for Moyes in those two decisions that in theory could have played in the reasons why West Ham stayed up?
Well, the thing you got to look at it is that Moyes wasn't the first West Ham manager to play Antonio up front. Bilic tried it. Pellegrini tried it. Now, under those two managers, he'd scored near enough all his goals when coming in from the right. He hadn't, when we'd played him up front, he'd struggled to get goals. He'd brought people in, he held the ball up. When he played up front under those, he was more of a target man, and he would hold the ball up and allow the midfielders to come and join. But that meant he didn't really get in the goals. Moyes plays him up front. I think plays the ball more in front of him. With Antonio, you've got to have him running onto the ball, running at the goal with the ball, not playing the ball up to him. Perhaps that's the different tactic. And the goals have flowed, haven't they? Yeah. So absolutely. You got, therefore, that is Moyes' credit to Moyes' credit. Perhaps because he did that with Arnautovic the same. If you look, Arnautovic got most of his goals the same way, by running with the ball at goal, not with his back to the goal. And perhaps that's the problem we've had under Bilic, under Pellegrini, was that we kept playing our strikers up there on their own with their back to the goal, and they need to be facing the goal.
Do you know, it's interesting you say that. I remember when he was this last season at Boleyn, and Julian Dix was being questioned about all the training methods and stuff. And he said, I'm not being funny, so one of the stand-up players at the moment is Antonio, because there was 1 week particularly where we were playing Sunderland at home, and he scored the only goal from cutting in and hitting with his left foot. And he said all week he's been training to do that. All week he's been training to cut in on his right and hit with his left. And it's gone absolutely perfect for him. I couldn't be more happy for him. And it just shows you that he does work at it. And it's funny because I remember when we signed Demba Ba, and we had Carlton Cole up front as well.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people, there was a lot of analysts, whatever you want to call it, who were saying that when you watch Demba Ba compared to Carlton Cole's always playing with his back to goal, and he's always having to do the hard work to turn his whole body around and then get a shot off. Demba Ba used to just look back, run almost backwards, because he'd be running towards goal saying, play the ball in front of me, like give me a through ball, give me a cross, give me a front end. And that's the way I reckon Demba Ba scored so many goals in his short time at West Ham, because he's just, his whole mentality was going, I'm not turning my back to goal at all. I'm a striker. You give me a ball in front of me, and I'll score you goals. Which is, so obviously that's all about technique for strikers. So yeah, it's quite interesting.
And that's the problem you get when you play one up front, though, because by playing one up front, generally it's a bigger, stronger attacker, and he's there, and he needs the support from the midfield. So what they're doing is they're playing it into behind him, so he has to play with his back to goal, to hold the ball up, to lay it off for them, and then to turn, and that's what slows it down.
Yeah, of course.
Can we really make Haller or keep Haller happy and try and see him this season and play Antonio up top at the same time? I mean, are we capable of doing that, Rich?
Look, I mean, all of us would love to see it happen. We know that Seb can't play up top alone. He struggles. It's frustrating watching how isolated he is. But it's going to come down to Moyes. And personally, I don't see him changing. I don't think he's going to play two up front. I think he's going to play one up top like he always has. I think he's stubborn like that. Personally, I think that would be the dream partnership, because you've got Seb, who's obviously not the quickest, he's good in the air. He'd be able to play balls through for Antonio to latch onto, and I think there could be a deadly partnership. But it all comes down to David Moyes, and I just personally don't see it happening. I would love for it to happen. I would love for us to play the Newcastle game with both of them in the side, but I don't think it will happen. I think he's going to play one or the other.
Yeah. I suppose it'll be interesting times ahead. Listen, let's get on to some other topics as well, which is the supposed comments coming out from the board saying that they're staying up on a minimal outlay. And I'll bring this one over to you, Nigel. When I've heard this comment that was made, I've searched all over the internet to see nothing come from the board. And it just seems to be that quite a lot of accounts are jumping on this quotation in particular and not basing their opinion on facts. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There's two Nigels, yeah. There's Nigel that wants to just go out there and say this is shit, this is thing, and then there's Nigel. There's a little click in my head that says, "Don't go mad, Nigel." So at the moment they're having a fight in my head because that comment is baseless. They've never said that. And the thing that's always been the way is that we've got to sell to buy. That's different to minimal outlet, because if we sell for 40 million, there's a good chance they'll say there's 35 of it, or there's even the 40 of it.
Yeah.
So if you take that comment, it was totally baseless.
Yeah.
I think it's been retracted.
Right.
But damage is done. No disrespect.
That's what I was going to say. There's there's a lot of, I think it was last night or the other night, it came up on the Q&A or even on Stell's show. And very quickly I thought, well, I'm going to jump around and see that, because I've not seen that statement anywhere. And everyone's jumped on the bandwagon. And then you just literally put it into like the world of Twitter, for example, and bang, the attack. Now, I agree with you, Nigel. There is that element of me wanting, I don't like the board. All that part of things, but you've got to base this on facts. Now, listen, maybe someone has made a comment to say, I mean, let's just put two and two together and realize we don't have money. Look at your name, we're skint. Like, we don't have the money to outlay to bring in the players. If we don't sign anyone, then in theory that is minimal outlay. So, put two and two together and coming up with the right result is that a form of journalism? Is that the wrong form of journalism? Is that, tarnishing a brush?
It's the thing is, when you set yourself up like we have, to a lesser extent, because no one watches this anyway. When you set it up to a lesser extent,
hold on a second. Hold on, this one's for you.
Cheers. Yeah, thanks. that he's vocal. Then in a way you've got a responsibility. I have this argument with Sean. People would have heard me time and time again saying, you don't realise when you speak, he speaks to people. Yeah, we all know who he talks to. Yeah, and what people can't differentiate is when he's sort of speaking as a pundit, not as someone that's had been told what to say, or not been told what to say, but he's had a conversation with someone, he repeats it. But sometimes Sean will put his own comments in and people think, oh, he's only saying that because of that, when actually that's his own point of view. He doesn't really know. The same with others. They've used their own point of view, but and in a way it's not their fault, it's the perception of the people on Twitter. They look at it and they jump on it and then it runs away from them. Yeah, they've lost control of it, of what they've said, because let's face it. All right, let's know everybody knows X gets good information. Yeah, let's not dress it up. It gets good information, trusted information. It's probably the most trusted account out there, but by the people in Twitter sphere. Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think he makes a comment on not what he's been told, but what he thinks. The problem is, then the people think, oh, he's been told that. Yeah. So actually, is it his fault? Well, no. But then, this is what I say to Sean: is you've got a responsibility to not behave that way, to not act in that way. If you're a news account, just give the news. I don't want to know your personal point of view. You know?
Yeah, do you know what? You kind of make a valid point, because I suppose when you do accounts like this, again, I know there's not a huge amount of people that watch, but the point is
I'm only joking, people.
No, I know. I'm only
There's
joking.
at least 50.
But between the social accounts, if we report something, if we decide as a group what we want to do we put out a fact, or do we put out something that we believe in? And I think we kind of came across that a while ago, guys, when we were like putting stuff out and saying, well, if we're going to put an opinion out, let's title it with our name, so it comes across like it's an opinion rather than a fact, because people come away, we've had people on the channel that say they get their news from our videos. They get their news from Stell's West Ham Weekly.
Well, it's dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the point I'm trying to, if they come to say West Ham Weekly and don't catch Stell's full show of Stell taking the mick out of transfers, then they may walk away and go, "Oh, we're going to go and sign this guy. We're going to go and do this." Richard, listen, we know the board don't have the money. Where does that leave you and your feelings and thoughts?
Oh, mate, just incredibly frustrated, like every season. I think going back to the earlier point, there's such a fine line between what you read on Twitter, and sometimes you have to be so careful. But in terms of the board, it's just, I just get so frustrated, and it happens season after season when you see, the clubs making good business decisions, bringing in decent players, and then you've got us on the other hand just making loss after loss on signings that we've brought in, and we've given them a season, and then we've made like a £5 million loss. I mean, I know they're not football owners, and I personally don't. I despise them. But if they do claim to be good businessmen, they're pretty crap at that as well, because they make loss after loss on players that they bring in. So on the football side, they're failing. On the business side, they're failing. So yeah, it's just incredibly frustrating for me, because with a couple of days to go until the beginning of the season, we are very, very thin. Our starting 11 isn't bad. Personally, we still need to bring in a couple of players at left back. But yeah, we're not looking good. If we have a couple of injuries, we're in big trouble again, and then it's a relegation scrap.
I suppose on those comments, then, two players in particular, Yeti and Hugo Luke, who came to the club, I think for a combined fee of, was it 18 million?
Yeah.
No, what was it? Go on, Nigel, correct me.
Well, Hugo was 10 million if we won the league, I think. Yeah. And this is the thing with transfers is that sometimes people will take so there's like a down payment of 5 million with add-ons. The add-ons add up to 10 million. Oh, you bought him for 10 million. He didn't hit one add-on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I ain't going to dress it up. We lost money on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was bought because they thought we were going to be relegated. They sacked Bilic, bought in Moyes, thought we were going to be relegated. Who did we lose? Was it Payet we lost? And they thought, well, let's get him in. He's got goals in the Championship. If we go down, then we've got a player already sitting there. The fact is, by hook or by crook, Moyes did keep us up. We didn't go down. The new manager comes in. He's jettisoned straight away because there's, Pellegrini's been dealing with Rolls Royces. He's a Skoda. Yeah, Skoda's a lot better. Don't knock it, people. I'm not. It's not Skoda of the 1980s. We're talking about Skoda owned by Volkswagen. They've run out a nice motor, but it's still a cheap Volkswagen, isn't it? At the end of the day. So if I want a Volkswagen, I'll buy a Volkswagen. I won't go and buy a Skoda. And that's what he is. He's a Skoda.
But our history, listen, there's no denying, though, that our history of signing players and the money that we bring back in hasn't been great. If you look at other models from other clubs about, scouring the lower leagues, bringing in, not just, people with talent, and probably knowing that they won't maybe make it at their club, but they'll sell on for a profit. I mean, I hate men, but Tottenham have got a bit of a history of doing it. You can look at, I mean, if you look at I know they're in a different league, but Celtic in particular, they look at potential, and I mean, that's how they bring their income in is through signing players who've got potential. I think Van Dijk went, and I think they made 900% on what they purchased them for. I mean, it's just we make minus 500% on what we purchase players for. Where does that leave your feelings and thoughts, Luke?
First of all, I mean, when they said that Hugo was going to win the league, did they know what league? Did they put down what league he was going to win? Because obviously, it wasn't the Premier League, was it?
The Betway Cup.
Yeah, that's not even a league, but fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Just on that comment about minimal outlay, right? That might not have been true. That's fair enough, right? But I guarantee if someone did actually go to the owners, right, and go, "What's your ambitions for this season?" They'd probably go survival and minimal outlay or something along them lines. Because let's face it, it is more or less the truth. You know, your name's on it as it is, Nigel. We're skin. But I don't. You'll know more about this than me, Nigel. That you know, I don't understand how we're so skint, right? Because personally, I've got to say, I watched your video years ago. I think it's when you done for Hammers Chat on YouTube. It's like 15 minutes long, and you just bang each topic. You just literally nailing the video. But people watching, if you haven't seen it, just look it up on YouTube. It's the best video. If you want to know why people do GSB out, this is what turned me. And I didn't really have all the facts. This gave me the facts. And I'm like, you say no one watches this video, and don't think many people watch that video either, which they need to start going out and watching. But I don't. We moved, and it seemed to be that we made no profit on Upton Park, which was has been said that must be some sort of dodgy dealing somewhere or another. But we moved to this stadium, and it was meant to be that it was the best loophole in business in a decade. A lot of business people from the London sector said, "I don't know how Karen Brady's done this. She's done West Ham a good one by getting into the stadium the way she has." And we've just, apart from one window when Pellegrini first come in, that's the only time I've seen West Ham go out and spend some proper money and buy in a load of players. And I'm not just talking really about transfers either, but we just suddenly, I know it's COVID's happened, I know everyone's skint, and I know that, we're not the only club about money, but I don't understand how we've got no money. I don't understand how we're, I know there's instalments to pay for like Haller, and obviously that's how most transfers are done now. They're not done in one bulk, they're done in instalments over months and all this and all that. But we just seem to be so skint when we shouldn't be. I mean, I don't understand. If I had the only in front of me, I want to say get out and all this sort of stuff out, but I'm thinking, just what is it? Where is it? Are you literally just milking the club dry? Is that it? And it's just been, somehow the press haven't found out about it or something like that. But I don't. The thing about the transfers is you've got players like Ayeti, right? People are moaning that Ayeti isn't sold for profit. I like the Ayeti. I think he should have been given more of a chance personally, but that's just me. But he didn't do the business last season when he was signed. Hugo has been on loan and hasn't had it looks like a pub player, to be honest, the way he plays, but he's a championship player clearly because he can score goals in that league. We were never going to make profit unless some, rich club in China would spend 50 million each for them for some stupid fee, right? We were never going to make profit because the players aren't good enough. If you look at the players we're getting sold for profit who were bought cheap, like Leicester have done with Chilwell, etc., because they were good players. Chilwell's a good left back. Yet he wasn't proven to be a good forward. Hugo wasn't proven to be a good forward. So that's why we're losing money. But aside from that, again, the book players haven't worked out investment-wise. But I don't understand. Someone, like I said, Nigel or Sean will know finance-wise why we actually don't make money. But this is another reason why I'm against the owners, GSB out, all that sort of stuff like that. Because I just don't understand how we aren't self-sufficient in a way that, yeah, it's fine. We can have COVID. We've got hundreds of millions in the bank yet. We can save that for a rainy day. We've got nothing. I don't understand it. I just don't understand. I really don't.
I could briefly, something I'll say may sound like I'm defending the owners. I'm not. What I'm dealing with is sort of the facts and the truth. But what it comes down to is mismanagement of the club. The fact is that the move hung ran the club like a chain round the neck. The problem they had is they made promises about the move, and they made bold statements that they needed to act on. Now, the fact is that prior to the move, it was all about the build up to the move,
Yeah.
Staying in the Premier League, they built that up. They brought players in like Andy Carroll, put them on big money. So they did bits and pieces, just enough to keep us bobbing along till we got to Stratford. The problem is they never built a proper team. You move to Stratford, now they've got to get going. But what they did was, you look, that first transfer window, Nordfight, they bought 4 or 5 players, Tok Gokantor, then who spent a year at the club. So they brought in these players. These players were for the here and now. in a way, pay it. It was for the here and now. Instead of going and buying 21, 22-year-olds, building, they bought 28, 29-year-olds. You know, I got criticised when we brought in Zabaleta and brought in Joe Hart. People were going, oh, what great signings. And I'm going, but these are all 28 to 30-year-olds. What's going to happen in 3-4 years' time? But this is the problem. They went through manager after manager, but kept in the transfer window. Even Arnautovic was 27 when we signed him.
Yeah.
You know, so actually the only way to make money out of him or get your money back was to sell him after only 2 years. That turnaround of players doesn't create a team. So we've got a high turnover of players. We're buying players at the height of their age, ability wise. So therefore, the value's only going to slide. Even Chicharito, the value was only going to go down with the thing in. And that's the problem. So this is why we're skint, because we buy players at the top of their career who are on maximum wages. So the wage bill is high. If you go back and look at the accounts, the quickest way to do it is go back and look at the accounts and look at the monies owed in transfer fees compared to the money we're owed.
Right.
And that is why we're skint, because we owe something like 60 to 70 million people a pound, but the clubs owe us about 20. And that's gone on for the previous 4 or 5 years. It's a total... The move was supposed to project us.
Yeah.
The reason why I was against it from the start, because I knew they never had the finances to do that it would take. Because if you're languishing where we are, to catch up, you got to outspend them for 4 or 5 seasons. They were never going to have that money, because actually we would have to spend £1 billion, and he's only got £1 billion. He would bankrupt himself, Sullivan. Do you see what I'm saying? So actually, no owner, unless you like the idiots that run like Palace in the past, are physically going to throw their family wealth down the road. And I don't expect them to. But the problem is, for me, why I want to go is because they've put themselves in this situation now where they've turned this whole turmoil in, all these fans arguing amongst each other and everything, and the raging and everything on them. They've only got themselves to blame because it's pure mismanagement of the football club.
Spot on. With
no plan. The way they've bought players, the managers they've hired and everything. Sometimes it's like, do I want to manage like David Moyes? No, I'd never choose him, to be fair. You know, when Pellegrini turned up, I felt sorry for Moyes when he got sacked because he did a good job. Pellegrini turns up and I think, I can understand it. But then again, I'm thinking of Pellegrini that had been at Real Madrid, nearly won the title with record points. The man that won the title at Man City. I'm not a Man City fan. What I didn't realise is he won the title with Mancini's team. And after 3/4 of the players he bought, they actually sold for less money. The evidence was actually at Man City. The 2 years, he was there 3 years. Yeah, he won the title in the first year, then started bringing his own team. Yeah, and they were ordinary.
It's just this sums it up. It absolutely for me.
So
when you perfectly summed up,
we all got sucked in by the name.
100%. And when you look at the sums and do all the sums, you can't help. Topical right now again is Declan Rice and the rumor that I don't know where yous are at. And Richard, I'll put this one.
I've got.
What?
I'll let you do that. I'm sorry, but I've got to say something on that in a second. But yeah,
carry on. Declan Rice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll come to you as well. So Declan Rice, the rumor that doesn't keep going away. Abramovich has got a checkbook. West Ham are saying, haven't officially come out and said he's not for sale. I hope he doesn't go, but I do know that money talks. If the financial situation that West Ham are in is the way it is, then will money talk and will West Ham sell their best asset? We have a history of doing it. Richard, what do you really believe will happen come, I think, what is it, October the 4th, the 11th? I don't know what the date is. It closes
6, isn't it?
6.
In my heart, I believe he'll stay. But unfortunately, money does talk. And if we're talking 70 million, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if we sold him. That can transform our porter cabin training ground by 1,000%. That can do huge stuff for the club. So I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. Obviously, I'd love for him to stay. But it does seem like Chelsea are really interested, and they've got the finances and means to pull off the transfer. So yeah, I believe he's going to stay this season. I think he'll probably go next season. I think this season's a bit too soon, and I think they're close to signing Kai Havertz. So I reckon Declan Rice might be a bridge too far for them in this window. But I definitely think come next season he'll be gone. End of next season.
Luke, you were going to say something on him?
Yeah, I've got to say, right, I love West Ham fans a bit. Obviously, I'm a West Ham fan myself, right? But there's got to be some sort of stopping of the knee-jerking of every little thing that people can pick up that he's going to Chelsea, right? Obviously, everything's on Instagram. Who plays on Instagram? They can't hide it. You know, everything they post, everything they say, it gets micro-analysed, and they get, oh, this means that, this means that, this means that. West Ham fans say they don't want Rice to go; they want him to stay. Right? If you look at the boys' post, right, there's maybe a photo of a Chelsea legend. There's he's good Mason. Everyone knows this. His best mate is Mason Mount. Everyone knows this, right? But he couldn't be more pro West Ham when he posts. Everything he does on his story on Instagram is I love West Ham. He's never posted. He personally has never posted anything about it, right? And people were saying that, that he's having photos. So let him have his photos. The boy deserves it. The boy deserves to have some fun. Just let him go out and do it. Even if he liked the Chelsea post on Twitter, good on the boy. That's your team. That's your boy of the team. You know, that's him. You know, that's him doing what he wants to do. But he respect-wise, he's playing for us. He's got a massive contract. He's never said anything, right? And then all the fans are going, oh, something needs to be said. Something needs to be a statement brought out by the board or by Rice. It doesn't. He's on a massive contract. If you look through his posts and his stories and everything like that, there is nothing to suggest that he's going to say, "Oh no, I'm thinking about going to Chelsea and doing whatever." Yeah, money talks. But why does there need to be a statement brought out? Why? Because he's on a really long contract. He's played for West Ham, every game of every season. He's trained here and there. He's posting about things. And okay, the board all about money. And he'll sell up. Fair enough, right? I tell you now, if he gets sold on deadline day, right, there will be protests, there will be riots, and fair play, right? Because if he goes on the last day without a replacement, any sort of replacement, it has to be a good replacement, obviously. Then they've got every right to be annoyed. But until that happens, it's almost like we want him to go. We're searching for things that are going, oh, this hashtag this and this little comment here, it must be going. We're almost looking for reasons to go, he's going. Oh, let's all have a cry and let's go and slag off the O's and stuff like that. So at the moment, he's the only people that are linking him with a move away from the club are the fans themselves, it seems. And it's just, I just find it a bit funny at the moment.
Good point, Noel. Good point. Nigel, what's your thoughts?
He's correct. Rice has done everything right towards this football club. He's never said a word wrong. Everything is about Rice playing for West Ham. Everything that comes out of his mouth. I wonder if Chelsea are worried that Mason Mount's going to join West Ham because, at the end of the day, West Ham fans see him out with Mason Mount and they're all saying he's going to Chelsea. So I wonder if Chelsea fans are going, I hope you're not going to West Ham, because that seems to be, the Twitter sphere. I said last night, if you manage to sit through 3 hours of a podcast with Sean on, that people on Twitter seem to think that Twitter is the fan base, but it's not. And actually, this ain't the fan base. This is a minuscule. This is a bubble.
Hold on. We are the fucking fan base.
But this is a slight bubble. If you go over the stadium, and I know lots of people who don't do social media. I know more people that don't do social media than more people that do it.
100%.
Yeah, and so therefore, they don't give a monkeys. Yeah, and when people talk about the fan base think this and the fan base think that and this and that, and if you're basing that on Twitter, not the fan base, the Twitter people are, because they're angry. But then again, they're all running around winding themselves up, aren't they?
Yeah. 100%.
That, and this is the problem with Twitter. I used to find was people years ago used to say, I used to come across as a bit of a nutcase on Twitter. But I used to say to people, I've got 120 characters to get my point across. I've got to go to the jugular. My tweets to David Gold were like literally, I was gripping him around the throat and shaking him. And And the thing is, it was quite funny because back then people used to slag me off because they all loved David Gold.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Now it's changed a bit because you've got 240 characters, so that means you can elaborate a bit, but you're still restricted, into you've got to shout and go for the jugular on Twitter, and that's the problem with Twitter because you restrict to that characters. If you're trying to make a point, because you've got to do it really quick, you ain't got time to elaborate and actually calmly come up with what you want to say, and then people sit down and meet me. People that met me, that knew me from Twitter, used to go, "You're totally different to how we expected," and I go, "Yeah, well, I can use more words. I don't have to just go, I didn't have to just go, you're whatever, bleep bleep bleep. I could go, actually, I think this thing, I had a 20-minute conversation with David Gold back in 2012 where he said he knew who I was from Twitter, but then we had 15 minutes discussion, before we walked out. So it's, and that's the problem with using social media, especially Twitter. I don't really do Instagram, so I don't know what it's like on there. And in a way, these programs are better in a way because we get more of a chance to say what we mean,
Twitter's a toxic place, mate.
Yeah, it is. But
shit on there,
I'm demented. Listen, I'm getting older and I'm calming down. People are saying that now. 10 years ago, I'd love a row. I'd have a row in a phone box with a mirror. That's how I was. Now I'm older and realise what an idiot I was back then. But you have to let people find out they're being idiots themselves. You can't keep going around saying you're an idiot, mate, because then they get the ump with you. So I let people find out that they're being an idiot by themselves. Some it's taking longer than others. Sean.
But listen, we're sitting here talking about the potential incomings, the potential outgoings at West Ham, and West Ham fans are desperate to see some signings. We're absolutely desperate. And if you believe all the rumours that were true, West Ham were supposedly interested in QPR midfielder Eberechi Eze. I mean, I don't again ever remember hearing Moyes saying that he was his number one target, although what I do know from it is that Eze was a quality player and still is a quality player. And I do think that Crystal Palace have found themselves a great player. But then we could start looking at the comparisons between Diangana and did we need this guy? So if we look at some of the, Nigel, I know you don't like massive amounts of stats, but of course we have to bring them to people to let them know about last season when Diangana was at West Brom, 30 games, 8 goals, 6 assists, compared to Eze, who played 46 games with 14 goals and 8 assists. But questionably, you could say that one player played at the top of the league versus one player that played for the mediocre side. Do we really need to bring in another midfielder, and do we have enough with Diangana on the wing there? What's your thoughts, Rich?
Look, I mean, I would have loved for us to have got Eze in. I think he's a really talented youngster, and I think Palace have got a really top player who's going to grow, and they could probably sell him on for profit in a couple of years' time. But at the same time, it was a want. I look at someone like Diangana, and for me, I prefer for us to give him a chance. I think he's really matured in the season that he had at West Brom under Bilic, and he's come back to West Ham a much more complete player now. I think he's ready for the challenge, and I'm really genuinely excited to see him play in this West Ham side now. So yeah, I'm not too bothered that we've lost out on Eze. I would have liked him personally. He's not that position is not a position that we really needed to strengthen in my opinion. I think we've got enough in the tank going forward. So yeah, I think we should divert our attentions elsewhere and just give Grady a fair crack at the whip and just give him a chance, because I think he's got great potential, if not more than Eze. So I'm not too bothered, to be honest.
But again, let's talk about money talks. If Diangana's had the season he's had last year, then he's gained a new price tag for this summer. Again, look, I know that we could be just making things up, but the point I'm trying to make is, if he comes with a value and teams out they want to pay it, would the board be tempted to sell this young talent that has not yet proven himself with West Ham except for a friendly?
Do you know what? I saw something on Twitter earlier which was saying that people were saying we don't need it, because we've got Lanzini looking back from fire, and then lo and behold, Lanzini's been linked with a move away. So it's kind of ironic we're sort of, you know, cutting off one hand to use the other and then cutting off that one as well. But I didn't even know anything about it. So I didn't even know the player existed until I think you told us about him in a group chat, Anton, ages ago. So I watched a few clips on YouTube and I saw a few things on Twitter, and he probably would have been a very, very good player. But I said a little while back that I in my head, it's if you keep being linked and keep buying championship players, you'll end up in the championship. Yeah, okay, they might have brilliant potential, but he's gone to Palace, and I'm not being funny. I don't know about any Palace fans, what they're all about, what they know about all the ambition in the club. But I don't know where Palace want to be. Do Palace want to be competing in Europe because they're meant to be selling Zaha every window? Was he a replacement for him? But where Dean Garner's concerned, he just seems to have matured in the last 12 months. I remember when he first sort of not burst on the scene, but first got an opportunity, I think under Pellegrini, it was for his first season. He seemed all right, but he just seemed a little bit like a weak kid. He was just didn't really look like he was, a bit of pace about him, wanting to go past players. But in pre-season, he looks like he's got a bit of skill about him, a bit of energy about him. And the worst thing for me was to sell him now, because okay, he's being linked. He's got a £20 million price tag, right? But a club like West Ham, and I'm not being funny, Nigel's been talking about it, right? All 20 million. Well, that's quite a lot. We could buy another player for 20 million. Well, what's he going to be like in another year? If he has a great year, he could worth 40 million. So are we going to sell now? A panic sell, in my opinion. That would be a panic sell because we're trying to make as much money quickly and then invest it again in another 20 million pound player, and then sell that player next year and make another 20 million. And if they're all about youth, if they really are serious about bringing the youth through, which they seem to be this preseason, because they've got no choice, because they've got no money to buy any players, then I don't see the point in selling him. If he's raring to go, if he hasn't wanted to go back to West Brom and play with Bilic, then that means something. Because sometimes players get a bit attached to the clubs they've been playing well for. So if he's going, no, I want to be at West Ham, and I'm not being funny. I can't see Yarmolenko playing 10 games straight without getting an injury. I'd love to see it, but I've got faith that Dean Garner will have a good season this season. And if he isn't, and if we lose him for nothing, then I'll go, sorry guys, it's my fault. We should have sold him 20 million. I apologise. But yeah, I'm looking forward to just in the West Ham.
Listen, we wouldn't also be a social media channel if we didn't report the other rumours that are out today. And you've mentioned one of the players, Lanzini and Pablo Fornals. I mean, today he's linked with Napoli. There's chats about trying to balance the books with a bit of value on Fornals. Then on top of that, again, rumours kicking about saying that Lanzini's potentially linked going back to Saudi Arabia. The guy, Nigel, I mean, without looking at the links, what is your thoughts on Lanzini's particular non-performing last few seasons in a West Ham shirt?
Lanzini's been affected by injury that he got, didn't he, with Argentina, and he's not been the same. Now, it could have been a worse injury than anyone thought, so it's possibly took him time. He's been in and out and never really recovered his first team place. We all know the bloke's a talent. From the first time I see him, I thought he's the one that's going to be special, and I still got a lot of faith in his ability, and I think we jettison him possibly. If we get rid of him now, we could be doing it a bit too quick, because he's coming to the age where he should be approaching his peak of his career. So, I mean, the Lanzini thing flagged up last night, and within 10 minutes, we had a reply from the senior sources that news to us, I think was the phrase.
Yeah.
So, what's happening now is you get this thing with, there's not a lot of transfers happening. And I think we're going to have a fundraiser soon for agents, because they're obviously suffering in this time of need, because then the transfers ain't happening. So they're having to punt out more and more of these stories. Let's get this right. It's not only senior sources that provide information. Yeah, it's other people involved in transfer deals that want to generate maybe try and put it out there to destabilize the player. their own player to get him to move, to destabilise the club, to go, all right, we will move, to create something. Because at the end of the day, you know, they've probably can't afford their 5 holidays in Dubai a year. These poor agents. Perhaps we'll get Russ to do a fundraiser in one of his Thursday night game shows for, you know, because they're obviously having a terrible time of it in moving players.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but is there, you know, we're infinite. We're not got money. Again, I'm just putting it down to this. There is a statement you can make by saying, is all players for sale? They're not officially for sale, but there's no ifs and buts about it. We've got some assets there that could generate some much needed income.
A club like West Ham, every player is always for sale.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for the right fee. For me, if we sell Declan Rice for anything less than 80 million, then you know, let the wrath of the fans rain down. You know, I'm not a great protester. I think we need to be careful about tearing ourselves apart in the way that it's done. But if we sell Rice, then we've gone back to the Ferdinand day. Yeah, and the sale of Rio Ferdinand was just started a snowball effect. Yeah, that ended up with us sacking Redknapp. Lampard then left because his dad and uncle had got sacked. You know, we ended up appointing a manager for, you know, who had a great first season, but then fell apart when he tried to bring his own people into the team because he did it off the back of Redknapp's team. Fell apart, go down. The club then, that's probably the death of the club there and then, because actually, if we hadn't been relegated, we would have rebuilt the East Stand. We would have had a 45-seater Facet Stadium, and there's a great possibility that with the money that they've invested already in Upton Park, they wouldn't have looked elsewhere. You know, everything snowballs for me from the sale of Rio Ferdinand. You know, if I was a 16-year-old kid at school writing a dissertation on where West Ham went wrong, it would be the day they sold Rio Ferdinand to Leeds United. Yeah.
It's always the one that kind of sits in the back of my mind as well, Nigel. I think I've always mentioned it every time we probably seem to have a conversation, because that's the first time as a young lad that I looked at West Ham sell for big money at the time. I mean, it was the record signing at the time, I think, wasn't it? Or record for their defender.
Yes.
And we didn't, you know, money talked for West Ham, but
I think it's possibly still our second or third highest fee received for a player.
You think
which says everything you need to know.
That's crazy when you think about that he's been gone and retired.
Yeah, so Payet. I think it's Payet, possibly Arnautovic, and then Ferdinand. If I'm doing this off the top of my head, but and that's the stat, and that tells you all you need to know, because the only reason we sold Payet and Arnautovic because they'd had enough of us. So you know, in that instance, that's it. In this day and age of big money transfers, our third highest is 18 million to Leeds in what, 2000? On one?
Yeah.
Or 2000, I think.
November 2000. You look at it and you think he's gone out the door. You're thinking £18 million. Who will we bring in? And I know we've had this, you know, Rigobert Song. Was TT Kamara part of that?
So it was Rigor Mortis Song. The Salvation Army newspaper, Christian Daily, and the and Sithead Kamara. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I tell you guys a funny story about Rio Ferdinand?
Yeah.
So my dad went over to watch the lads, I can't even remember when. And he went to the training ground and obviously got chatting to Harry somehow. And after the training session, the lads went to go eat. And everyone ate their food, but Rio didn't end up eating whatever. He said the food at the training ground was shit. So he ended up going to McDonald's with my dad, and they had a Big Mac or something after training that day. So that's no word of a lie. So that's a crazy story.
Let's hope it wasn't the day that he missed his test. Remember, he missed his what was it? He did not get
he was playing for United.
Yeah, he was at United. That's right. He played for United then. That's right.
Yeah, but apparently the training ground food was shit.
Did your dad at the time, Rich? Did he go? Tell you what, Leeds is looking quite good this year. I think they'll be fine, right? Did he didn't put a little word in his ear, did he? Saying, yeah, the food's shit. You want to go up to Leeds?
Nah. My dad would have done everything in his power to keep him. Believe me. He would have said, "Go have a
the
pie and
funny
mash."
thing about that comment is it's exactly the same comment that made Frank Lampard so hated by the fan base because he went to Chelsea and said, "We do things so much better here. Even the food's better in the canteen."
Yeah.
He had, I think he said like something about eating pasta at Chelsea. At West Ham, we was having bacon rolls, and of course, the point Frank got wrong was the fact is it was his dad and uncle that allowed that to go on.
It's funny you say that actually, because I'm sure at some point last year, one of the players had put up an Instagram story. Now I'm not as active as on Instagram than I am on other places, but I'm sure they were showing a clip of Diop tucking in to pasta and chips and ketchup for his lunch one afternoon. I'm adamant that's what I saw. Now I know pasta's
I've seen it too.
But he was definitely had a big bowl of chips in the pasta, and he was just pouring ketchup all over the top. And you couldn't help but think, are we back in the 1990s? You know, during that era. But hey ho. But then listen, let's talk. I mean, you could briefly talk about Leeds. I mean, look, there's a side that spent a fortune. You know, I don't know if you ever remember the story about Danny Mills when he went into the negotiations with the Leeds owners. And they turned around and said, "What do you want?" And him and his agent had a chat and went for the highest over-the-top weekly amount of money. And Leeds turned around and agreed to it. And apparently when Danny Mills walked out, him and his agent were just like totally flabbergasted and shocked because they just went yes. And they never negotiated at all. They went well above what he knew he was worth at the time. But there's an example of a club that, did they make it to Champions League? Was it semi-finals?
Semi-final, got beat by Valencia, who had Mendieta in their team.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then obviously the demise of Leeds spending the money. So you've got a club. I mean, West Ham nearly were there. The podcast you were talking about it with Icelandic owners, Nigel. It was like Egert Magnusson. He was a kid in a sweet shop, wasn't he? Like, you know, signing all these players and all the players that my middle 20-year-old man myself started to believe that West Ham needed to target. The Freddie Ljungbergs. I remember signing Freddie Ljungberg, thinking that's a good signing, but in actual fact, it
30-year-old Freddie Ljungberg.
Yeah. But I was sold by his past, and I was the at the time. I was the generic supporter that believed the crap, like the Kieran Dyer, the Craig Bellamy, albeit I thought Craig Bellamy performed well. Yeah. You know, it's just, you know, how could you not follow it? Again, I know what you're saying, Nigel, about, you know, you saw it then back differently. I didn't see it differently back then. I was sold by all these players. And every time they were coming in, I was like, and then I was talking, you know, Facebook memories is a really clever thing because at the time I was quite a vocal West Ham fan, like you said, Nigel. So I look back at some of the comments. I dread to actually show a picture of what's shown up in my memories over the last couple of days related to the board, because it was, when I think about what like a fanboy, borderline fanboy about the board, because I believed everything that was being told to me from the moment they walked through that door. The moment they had they presented their plan to the club, to even, you know, Upton Park. And, you know, Nigel, I never met you before that. I met you, I think, the first or second season at the new stadium. But I've got a suspicion.
You met me as a little boy, but I'll rephrase that before people start getting Operation whatever involved with Jimmy Savile. I met you at a game when you was with another or someone else, and we were friends with people years before we knew each other. I think I've recovered that.
But the thing is, though, like, you just believe, you know.
Yeah.
If maybe your campaign or your opinion had got out to fans, you know, social media wasn't as vibrant as what it is now when you were doing that whole campaign about the move. And I know we slightly digressed here, but why not?
I mean, 10 years. It's funny because I looked at it because it's approaching 10 years. It's going to be 10 years now that I started to campaign against the move. So it was 2010, September 2010. When I had some posters up, I was trying to look at it, and I think it's the 1st of October. I started 2 Facebook groups as well. One that was pro the move, one that was anti the move, because I wanted to gauge, was I wasting my time in being anti? And the more people joined the anti Facebook page than the pro. But I didn't know nothing about social media. I didn't join Twitter till the October. My daughter had done it for me. And I never knew about West Ham websites. I was completely in the dark with the internet. So, I taught myself. I paid for lessons at the Apple shop and taught myself how to make a website.
Yeah.
And I launched my website. And I didn't know where to go. I did it with the help of mates. A few people then outside see it, pointed me in the right direction. You know, I did it the old school way. The first thing I did was paid £150 and had a flag made that people have seen the picture of me that said "Say no to the Olympic Stadium." And I bought the website address first, before I knew how to make the website, so I could have it put on the flag. And the idea was to take it into the ground, and that's what I did. I hung it outside the ground and I took it into the ground. And then at first the club thought, "What's this idiot?" And then they met me. They actually had a meeting with people in the club to outline it with a few others, and then it sort of snowballed and got a bit of traction. And then they didn't like the flag being in the ground, and there was not a fight, but there was an altercation with stewards. Where I sat one day, and then I got an email saying the flag is banned. But by then I was on the SAB, so I think they didn't want to ban me from the ground because they were worried that it would draw attention to the fact that I would obviously made a big noise. So they banned the flag from the ground. And the fact is, the next game after I got the email saying, your flag is banned from the ground because it's an inflammatory message. All it said was "Say no to Olympic Stadium." It was an inflammatory message. And when I walked in, the chief stewards were waiting for me when I walked in.
Jeez.
To make sure I didn't have it. And they said, "Look, Nigel, we don't want to throw you out, but we will throw you out."
Yeah. Richard, do you think then, I'll ask you a question. Do you think if Nigel's kind of campaign at that time had maybe reached you, would you have thought differently? And the same question to yourself, Luke, because like I said, I was completely and utterly missold. Absolutely. There's no questions about it. I know there was not even a sense of doubt in my mind about it, but I definitely know if I had met Nigel and, maybe not being so bloody fucking stupid really in the head, that maybe I'd have saw things a lot sooner rather than later.
To be honest with you, mate, I always had my doubts big time. And my dad was the one who kind of leveled me and said, he obviously has the history side of West Ham and the nostalgic side. So he kind of leveled me out, and I got sold like everyone else. But he was the kind of the calm voice in my head going, "You know what, like, we're losing a lot of our club." And to be honest with you, I was more upset after the final game at the Bowling Ground than I was like excited for what was to come, because genuinely, like, having gone to the Bowling in 2009, that genuinely was probably the best day of my life, seeing West Ham play at that ground. And I had such fond memories. So it wasn't like I was super, super excited to be leaving. I know that there were a lot of West Ham fans that were, but in my household here in South Africa, we were genuinely more upset to be leaving than we were to be going to this new fantastic stadium. So I don't think if Nigel's campaign got more traction here, it would have changed my mind. I think I was more negative than positive, and that came from my dad. And yeah. That's just from our side.
What about yourself, Luke?
Before I go any further, Nigel, would you mind removing that Davy Sullivan bobblehead on the screen? Because it's really putting me off. I'm getting really freaked out by it, and it almost makes you look like you're pro Davy Sullivan.
I do it for a joke.
Right.
Just
I know you do. I've watched your videos on here before. It's fine, but it's just It's just like it's eyes like there, and it's
there
like
you go.
just watching
Just for you.
I'm just here. I'm always here. To be honest with you, I was sold as well, and I'll tell you the reason why. I think it's because I was looking at all these other clubs that had ambitions to move on and stuff like that, and the way it was sold was. I'm not being funny. David Sullivan couldn't have said more at the time. I think he was on the pitch, wasn't he, for the last game of the season, last game at Bowling Ground. He was saying, "I promised, that we will sign a marquee sign and all this sort of stuff like that." And what I should have done, really, is I should have looked at his previous record while being a West Ham owner, everything that he'd done, every signing that he'd made. Because prior to that, I think that's what it was. I think it was that summer we signed a load of really good signings, and the season before that as well. And I was thinking he's starting to get his game together. There's something he's building something. I think this might actually start to come off. So I was like, I went to Upton Park 4 times. I loved it every single time, but I thought to myself, right, if we can go to this, because I watched the Olympics in 2012, and I thought it was an amazing stadium on TV. I was like, wow, the lights, glitz, the glamour, the athletics, everything like that. I think West Ham can get a bit of this, then it bodes well for the future. And I think I was a bit here and there when we moved. I'm thinking, is the stadium that crap? Are people really moaning about it? Is the scaffolding really big problem? Until I watched Nigel's video, and it wasn't the fact that someone else was saying it. It was the fact that you had facts backing it up, and you had video evidence of how they'd lied. And don't get me wrong, if it was still a great stadium, if it was still an okay stadium, it wasn't exactly matching up to what they said. They could have got a few things wrong here and there, but every single little thing, every single minute of promise of thing they said was going to happen. And the biggest thing for me was him saying that we cannot move stadiums unless the seats are right by the pitch, like they are Upton Park. Still hasn't, no matter how much you square off that seating, it still hasn't happened, and it probably won't ever happen. But it almost seemed like as soon as we went to the London Stadium, we'd gone back to the, when we the 14-15 season, we got Stuart Downing in, and we was playing, Sacco and Valencia, and we was looking like really good, like top 4 for the first few months. Well, prior to that, we weren't having exactly the best signings, and it was like we'd gone backwards. And I couldn't really understand why they were free. To me at the time, I was thinking, bloody hell, that's a great signing. He's a World Cup winner and stuff like that. But didn't really take into account, hold on, how old is he? The best thing he ever did was go down to Carpenters and have a pint with a few of the fans, which was, amazing, to see a World Cup winner there. But nothing's really improved. And the biggest teller for me was when they first ever took over. My uncle was an Arsenal fan, and he said, "Oh, so you've been taken over now?" I said, "Has you gone through?" I said, "Yes. New owners, the Icelandic owners, they fucked up a little bit, so these will come in and change it for us." And he went, "Hold on, does he say he's a West Ham fan?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh yeah, that's good. He's a West Ham fan. Yeah, he's a fucking gooner. He's an Arsenal fan." And then when you go through years, you see him in Birmingham shirts and stuff like that, and him sitting on the car going, "Oh, we're Birmingham City. We want to take them forward." You start to go, there's a pattern emerging here. And all that has happened, the only difference is, and I think Birmingham City fans were telling this from day dot, they have done what they wanted to do at Birmingham, but couldn't do it because the council didn't let them move to the Olympic Stadium there, or wherever it was, or build a stadium there. And that is what we've become what Birmingham would have become. And I'm not look, Birmingham in the Championship, they're probably in no better situation than us. They were almost liquidated because, they've only been saved by selling one of their young players, which is fair enough. But it just says it all. And look, my minimum man argue all the time. He's not GSBM, but he doesn't really understand why everyone wants him out so much. And I'm almost giving up now. I'm thinking, well, look, we agree to disagree. But it's almost like banging your head against a brick wall, thinking that how can people not really understand how these people aren't going to take us forward? I've got to the point now. I just don't think they're good enough. They haven't got the money. They haven't got the vision. They haven't got the ambition anymore. They've got us in that stadium, and as soon as they consider us, they will. But yeah, just it's to me, I've almost like I've got no energy for it anymore. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, Nigel, you mentioned something there about when back before we even was considering the move, that West Ham, I don't know if there's a huge amount of fans that do know this. I'm assuming a lot of them do, but obviously they invested into the main stand at Upton Park, and there was always talks of us investing, like you said, in expanding the stadium to 45,000, which would have meant that am I correct in saying the East stand would have become a Kop stand, and they would have filled the corners in?
Yeah, I think it would have been 42,500. So basically, because what people the plans were, because I've actually got PDFs of the drawings. Basically, the reason, so the it all goes back to the late 90s. The West Stand has to be knocked down. Well, it actually goes back to the Bond scheme. So they had a plan to wall seat the stadium and build 2 cantilever stands behind the ground, reducing the capacity down to just from 36,000, I think we were, down to 24,000. That was the Bond scheme thing. That all fell apart. Then they've had to refinance it. So they built the Bobby Moore stand. The next to go was the North Bank, and they built the Centenary stand. Then they did not the old West Stand had to go. Now, if those that remember it, they built the new West Stand behind the old West Stand. So they actually built the upper tier of the new West Stand while leaving the old West Stand still there.
Which is what created the gap.
Knocked it down, but the gap was created for a reason. Yeah. So they knocked down the old West Stand and then put in the lower tier of to where the old West Stand was, and then we were back up to 36,500, leaving just the East Stand. Now, the reason why it was done like that was so they could move the pitch over and allow the building of the East Stand. I don't think it was cantilever. I think it was just one cop stand. But why you lose some was because to do that, they would have to knock down one row of the Trevor Brookings stand as it was then, and one row of the one block of the Bobby Moore stand to blend it in, because they couldn't go up and over because of the bus garage. So there was a problem with the bus garages, and also with the blocking of the lights in the flats behind. But that's why there was that gap. Now, when it was built, to be fair, that gap weren't as big in front of the chicken run. And what you'll find is they moved the pitch over a bit more for reasons that basically were, look where the 70 boxes were. Yeah. So the first season of the West Stand, the pitch was still nearer the chicken run. Yeah. Nice boxes, big, massive gap. Yeah. 2 years later, the gap is now at the East Stand side. Yeah, look where the boxes were. I mean, that was the biggest single stand, I think, in London, and had the most boxes than any other single stand in this country. Most corporate boxes. Yeah, 70 odd corporate boxes. People don't realise that. So, if we hadn't been relegated in 2003, they had the planning permission, everything was geared up, and then they had to go, hold on a minute.
Would that then have changed? Do you think that would have changed the outset of West Ham?
Yeah, because what happened with relegation is that straight away we lost Joe Cole, we lost we'd already lost Rio and Franks, we lost Cole. Defoe was destabilised. Carrick was injured, came back, but then left a year later. We lost Trevor Sinclair. Johnson went to Chelsea, wasn't it? Freddie Canuti moved on to Tottenham. We lost 3/4. I mean, 2 years after being relegated, England played America in a friendly, and 7 of the players had played for West Ham in the previous 5 years.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, that played for England that day. Sinclair, David James, Defoe, Lampard, Rio, Joe Cole, Glenn Johnson. So it's the great what could have been. Also, prior to relegation, we'd signed a pre-contract with a certain player called Didier Drogba to come and join us. Relegation scuppered that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Do you
Crazy.
when I remember hearing about the plans, I remember it was actually, I went on a tour of the stadium, and Peter Story took us on the tour of the
Peter, tell us the story. Yeah.
But he was explaining the whole kind of situation about that was actually at the time before the West Stand was built. So I was actually inside the changing rooms where it had the curtain over the windows.
The old one. Yeah.
And it had the big bath in, and they were telling
bath.
you. And he was just explaining that that's what the plan was. And at the time, I remember thinking, this sounds absolutely like amazing. And yeah, if we had pulled through with that and not got relegated, then we would be sitting in the stadium that, you know, now most of the fans want to be in. And I know, Nigel, you always wanted to be in, and potentially not looking at the thing. But, you know, if Gold, Sullivan and Brady had taken over West Ham, even with the stadium changes, they would have probably pushed for the London move, wouldn't they? Of the Stratford move.
I don't know. The problem is it's the fold, and there's even stuff I've read today or read recently that Karen Brady gave evidence to a committee, and they asked her a question about what prompted the move to the stadium, and it's something I always found strange. The day they bought the stadium, they announced the day they bought West Ham, they announced they want to take us to Olympic Stadium and with the support of Newham Council. Well, hold on a minute. That's the day you bought the club. What, you sat down with Newham Council and discussed it? Yeah, and that was the trigger for me. It was like, hold on a minute. And it turns out that Newham Council had sowed the seeds. So it's possible that Newham Council approached them before they bought the club, because Newham Council were going to be joint owners of the Olympic Stadium, and they were frightened of being lumbered with a white elephant.
Yeah,
it was a carve up from day one. You know, it was. Looking back at it, I was doomed to sell. But you know, the way I say it is, what you got to remember is David Gold. If you look back at it and think, in the 80s, you know, sex toys and everything, it was all over there, wasn't it? It was women behind closed doors, and we didn't really get involved. We were too busy having a drink and whatever, you know. And they've took that and put it in the high street and made it so people now walk in and wave them about in the shop and go, "Isn't this funny?" Yeah, 10-inch black rubber cocks. Yeah, no, you laugh, but they took that from being something, you know, like to be looked down upon, and put it in every shopping centre in the high streets.
Yeah,
you know, and so that's how good they were at marketing.
Yeah,
yeah, they just took that. And you know, as Luke said in the video that I did, where I showed that everything they'd done, they had tried to do at Birmingham, but had been fouled because it was conditional on Birmingham winning the Commonwealth Games, and as we know, they never did. And this is the funny thing is that Man City are in the the stadium built for the Commonwealth Games, that they beat Birmingham.
Yeah.
Now, if Birmingham had won it and not Manchester. Yeah. I'm not saying that Birmingham City would be like Manchester City now, but I don't think Manchester City may be Manchester City. Yeah.
Without that, yeah.
You know, and let's face it, all I just wish is that Paris had got 2 more votes.
We didn't get it on the stadium.
Yeah, because actually, yeah. But off the back of it, though, and this is not defending the move, it came at a time when Arsenal were moving into the Emirates, 60,000 seater stadium. Chelsea was were growing with money. You know, Man City had been bought by the Arabs, and everything was about money, money, money. And to be fair, when I started this, I never thought TV money would grow. And what TV money's done is it's equaled the playing field between the bottom 13 teams. Yeah. The top 6 are still up and away, far and away. But what you got to remember is there's one team in the top 6 that weren't there 10 years ago. And that's Tottenham Hotspur. And they did it by selling their best player 3 or 4 years running. And then invest.
Yep.
So
much. Listen, we can talk all night, but there's 2 more things I want to briefly talk about before we go, and it's particularly the title of the show. Now, we wouldn't be whatever.
Is there a title?
Yeah, there is some titles they're thinking about, which is actually about the
Gift of the Gab. I thought it was called.
Richard, do you know much about this man? The German Gotze, linked to West Ham, potentially available for a free, but probably with high wages. What's your thoughts? And listen, if we don't get him, what could he bring to the club?
Look, I mean, I'm a fan. I think on a free, it could potentially be good business. But again, you mentioned the massive wages, which is a hurdle for us. At the same time, I'm thinking to myself, it's in a position that we've got 4 or 5 players in at the moment that are decent there. So it's a luxury signing. It's for personally, if I had to choose, it wouldn't be for me. No, I'm a fan though.
Yeah.
But not for me. Just because it's a position that we don't need strengthening in. We've got a lot. We've got bigger fish to fry than Mario Gotze. I think we've got to look to strengthen in positions that really need strengthening. And for me, that would be a typical West Ham signing for us to get him in on stupid wages. Not for me.
Yeah, you look what you want to tackle him on that, do you? No. Can you hear me? I don't think you can hear me. Yeah, Nigel. I mean, listen. Is there any truth in this?
Well, I mean, you know, it's a typical West Ham signing and whatever, but we're in a typical West Ham position. So actually, to be fair,
yeah, can you hear me?
I don't mind. We can now. I don't mind a typical West Ham. I'll tell you why it might work. It might free up Johnson to play left back.
Yep.
You know, I don't know. There's a bit of me that thinks this geezer is undoubted quality. You know, and to get him, the thing is, there is no such thing as a free transfer. You know, some of these free transfers we've had to give them £6 million to come. Yeah. So a sort of transfer, if he has been paid, just to the agent and the player, not to the club that he's coming from. So you got that to consider, but I wouldn't turn him down. No, he played last season for Dortmund. I would have him because I think Johnson showed that he can play left back, and actually, I think it would give Creswell far better to have Johnson breathing down his neck than Masuaku.
Yeah,
unless you're going to find a left back.
Would you be happy with Fredericks at right back then? Because I wouldn't, but that's just me.
Well, no, but then if you sign in Gotze, you got Gotze at right back, haven't you? No. Yep. So that's what I'm saying. Is you got Gotze and Fredericks right back, Johnson, Creswell left back. It's not great, but at the end of the day, we're not a great team. You know.
But Gotze's an attacking midfielder.
But he can play right back, and at his age, he can go there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he has the legs to play right back, personally.
No.
But
well,
I mean,
it'll be an interesting one to see. Lastly, let's get the last one in. I don't know if we should really give him airtime, but did any of you see the interview with Arnie over in China, where he's not taking it so serious at the start? He was drinking fizzy drinks, Sprite, Coca-Cola, Fanta, all those sugar drinks that aren't good for him, eating at wrong times, not sleeping. When he went over to China, it took him about 3 weeks until he could adapt to the time. He went to bed at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, woke up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, went to training, stayed up again all night, eating all the wrong things. Boosted by his crazy new salary, 10 million quid a year. Do you think he'd jump at the chance to come back to the club? Listen, I know West Ham aren't going to be interested in him, but do you think he'd jump at the chance to come back? Oh, well, Nigel, don't do that face, mate.
I knew that'd get you worried. I don't think they'll have him back, to be fair. No, I don't.
Do you think he'd want to come back?
Yeah, he will.
Yeah, but the fans wouldn't have him.
Absolutely not.
I don't think.
Wait till he scores that goal, mate, on his debut when he runs back on.
And then does this.
That, yeah.
And then we all love him again.
Yeah, and let's see the reaction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I suppose that kind of brings us to an end. I mean, we're not going to try and challenge more than just a podcast and bringing you the longest ever listening.
Yeah, please don't. Yeah.
What?
Please don't.
I'll tell you who can still every Sunday, so keep an eye on his show because he might challenge you again.
God, they're getting longer and longer, aren't they?
I think he's been listening to yours.
Oh, mate. Even I gave up watching him Sunday.
Yeah. We were going to do a topic of conversation regarding Moyes and some of the managers, Richard, but if we do that, we'll probably end up into another hour or so. So we'll maybe leave that for another day.
Yeah, that's fine. That's right.
We're going to discuss, and I'll give you some blasts from the past here. I think I brought up some of their images before. And we're only going to do from Bonds onwards. But some happy faces. Alan Curbishley, Zola, probably Avram Grant. I mean, my word. My word. And then your favourite there, Nigel, Sam Allardyce. Look at me, can't even look at the screen. I think, like, hold on a second. I think there's a similarity, actually. Hold on a second. Look, is there? Well, it's and of course Moyes. But listen, what we'll do is we may come back to you in the next couple of weeks and discuss the managers. Any last points anyone wants to make before we leave? Richard?
No. All good. All good. Let's just sign. Can we please sign someone before the start of the season? But it's not happening.
Yeah, what was the point of you coming back?
Look, have you got anything you want to say? De Gea, what do you want to say?
Oh, shut up, you mug.
Nigel, do you want to do any promoting?
I can't even listen anyway.
Yeah, just don't believe everything you read on Twitter, people.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you a funny thing quickly is that on Saturday I tweeted out a poll with a team with no new signing saying, would it be that bad? And Sean see that I'd done it and thought, that's good, so I'm going to nick that and put it on Claret and you and do it. And he got absolutely dog's abuse for it. And he nicked the idea off for me. And I found it quite funny because everybody thought, the board are telling you to do that and everything. And all it is that he'd been half asleep Saturday. He didn't see I'd done it until Saturday night when the poll closed. And he thought, I'll nick that idea. You know, and it is laughable how people do think. He doesn't have this hotline to the owners. They don't ring him up and say, do this poll, do that. You know, it don't work like that. But it is funny.
Yeah,
absolutely. As is that one. I think he's a big fan. I think you need to stand up, put a party forward, Nigel.
Well, yeah, but he's got to spell my name right, and I might like him.
Well, someone actually thinks that Luke is the real De Gea. How did you get him on your stream? No, it's really not the real De Gea. Mordiaka Ariel Mosheberg. Anyway, this has been Ange United. This has been Gift of the Gab. Make sure you get subscribe, comment, hit the thumbs up. Go and check out More Than Just a Podcast. Go and check out Nigel's new episode you put out?
No, it ain't new. It's a trick I learned off of Sean. Is you find the right time to retweet old stuff, but don't tell them people that it's actually old. It basically, quickly, today is the 125th anniversary of West Ham United's very first game. They played Gravesend United and they won 7-0. Billy Graham became the first player to score 3 goals for West Ham. In fact, he scored 4 goals that game. And another player scored a couple, and I put the tube out. I put the video out again in YouTube that told the story of that game.
Yeah.
So I rehashed old stuff. It's called content.
Reusing some old content, but listen, get on it. Real history of West Ham. I've not had a chance to even look at it today, so I don't know if one of those I've watched before in the past, but get on it and do it, and then obviously go and check out Richard's Twitter. He's a very proactive tweeter, you could call it. So go and check him out if you want him on any of your shows. And I think, Richard, you've done a My Hammer's 11 with Russ, which was quite a good episode. Nigel, you've done a
that was good fun.
So anyway, make sure you donate to the food banks, the Newham food banks that Russ was raising money for as well. So let's have a look.
Do you want an exclusive?
Yeah, go for it.
So season ticket holders, apparently the renewals are going well. But basically, it's just come on the hotline that 1/3 though of renewals took the 30% option.
Is that 1/3 of total renewals that are currently?
1/3 of season ticket holders have taken up option 3, which is the 30%.
Does it, just quickly? I just want to get my head around that. Is that statement based upon all season ticket holders based upon last year, or current season ticket holders that are renewed?
I think it's current that have renewed. It says
Right.
1/3 of season ticket holders have taken up the option 3 are paying 30%. He's being a bit vague as usual.
I'd love to know how many that currently have.
Yeah, they will never release that. Yeah, they will only give out a positive message. Oh, it's the same as it was in the past. You know, it's keeping pace. Well, it can't be keeping pace because you've never had to extend the season ticket renewal deadline by a month. You know, so you know that tells you all you need to know about our season ticket renewals were going.
Yep, absolutely. Well, cool. Thanks for that one. Yeah, comment, like, subscribe. My name's Anton. He's Rich.
Quickly again. Sorry, I know off the press. Yeah,
Go for it.
I'll tell you why. It's a German update. Yeah, but Leipzig today announced that they're allowing fans into the ground, and basically they're allowed to have 20%. I think it's about 8,000 fans into their ground, but they will only allow local-based supporters.
I seen your tweet. I seen it.
Yeah, they will only allow.
Yeah,
no out. Yeah, so you two are out for a start. So basically, well, yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't know how they would do it with London, but what they're saying is, which is true, is if you think the West Ham fan base is spread far and wide, I know people from abroad that travel in. Yeah, obviously they're not going to get in. So basically what they're saying is only people in that area will be allowed into the stadium, will be part of the 8,000, will be allowed to apply for tickets. Any people that live further out will not be allowed to travel into the area because they don't want cross-contamination.
Yeah,
sure.
That's something that football clubs, I'd imagine, would be looking. I know we've got a big northern supporter base, south of you, but still north to me. Then again, Hackney's north to me, but still, the northern, like the Manchester boys, the Yorkshire boys, and all them.
No, Nigel, because I mean, tonight, for example, that they've started to bring lockdown restrictions back to Glasgow, so that's 30 minutes away from me. Scotland's seen a really strong rise in cases. I think that our numbers over 1, they're saying, and all that sort of stuff. So for me, yes, I'm still undecided what I'm doing for a season ticket for next year, because you know I know that I can get the money back, but I'm just trying to weigh up what is, you know, it'll be the first time in 12 years if I don't renew.
Well, I mean, it's always worth renewing. I mean, for me, it's easy to say, don't give them your money, no thing. But for me, you know, I say it. Look, West Ham's my area in. Yeah, I'm addicted to them, so I will go and queue for 3 hours in the shite and down the rain for the chance to be part of a ballot to get in a go to that game, and I will put up with whatever crap. I get the theory is if you give them your money, you're reinforcing their ownership. But I'm there to support the team.
Yeah,
you know, and I divorced the team away from them, and I give my money to the team. If you're in the Conjury, don't throw your season book in. Because one, I would never let them be the people that drive me away. You know, while they own the club, I will be there. Yeah, because they ain't going to be the people to make me stop going for a start, and don't let them be there. But second, just pay the 30% then. You know, because at the end of the day, if you don't have 70%, if the whole season ticket don't get used, it's 30% off the next season ticket. They're not going to keep the 30%. Yeah, that's the deposit up to 2021, 22. So I'm not jumping the beat.
No, I get it, though. I do get it.
Whatever, but you know,
I feel like if I was, you know, closer, there would be no ifs or buts. I'd be doing exactly the same. It's just more trying to take it in consideration, and maybe I just need to really reevaluate the full options. But
do you want to take the risk of going to the back of the 50,000 queue?
Yeah. Okay. The 30% one does look more appealing, of course. I'm not going to deny that. But realistically, even if I was to, and I wouldn't even enter a ballot anyway because I don't fancy traveling just now. And that's
to be fair, we don't want you coming across the border if it's going into lockdown. You can stay up there with your germs. Thank you very much.
So yeah, that'll be an interesting one to see what happens. So a third of current season ticket holders that have renewed have taken up the option 3, which is the 30% option. So get your comments in, let me know your thoughts, and let me know if you've renewed. We put something out today on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. And
lastly, because he's piling in now. He said, what's he said? Fraser's off to Newcastle, agreeing terms. Duffy's confirmed at Celtic, and Matty Cash to Villa for 15 million. Moyes passed on all of them, he says. Is that enough? I think that's enough for tonight. Yeah. I'll go so there you go, people. Matty Cash, 15 million.
Matty Cash is gone. Moyes has passed on him, but maybe Moyes has seen enough in what he's got, and we'll see. It goes back to the question of what you said in your tweet, Nigel. If we started the season with this squad, is that enough? Maybe there's another topic for another show.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, I've been Anton. He's been Rich. He's been Nigel. And come on, you Irons.